I unintentionally saw the movie Medea's Family Funeral. It was time spent. I won't say that I've never liked a Madea movie because I have liked them before, but I've also never been able to defend a Madea picture from most of its criticisms. And there is plenty to criticize: the casting, the dialogue, the direction, odd or conflicting tones, jokes that are just plain immature sometimes. However, even though I didn't enjoy my time this time per se, I did learn something significant that I hadn't realized about Madea movies. Madea movies are 90 to 100% third act. Madea movies have a very unique style of storytelling. They start off with a conflict, something bad has happened to someone or something unfortunate occurs, and then the rest of the movie is spent with the main characters trying to deal with the backlash of or resolving that problem. After the first 20 minutes of the movie, where Tyler Perry is setting up the characters and the conflict, the rest of the movie, which is usually about an hour or so of the film, is filled with things that are most often associated with the third act of a film. The final conflict is brought to a culmination where all the plot lines converge. The conflict is resolved. There is a final crisis that resolves the climax. The narrative finds closure, and no new characters are really being introduced. Now, it isn't that there aren't any elements that you might consider to be associated with a rising action or character building scenes, but if we look closely at Madea movies, they don't really properly build the first or second act. Now, if I may apply this to Medea's Family Funeral, the inciting incident in the movie is the most interesting or impactful part of the movie. The inciting incident is when the patriarch of the family dies, and then next we find out that him and some other family members are sleeping around. The death of this patriarch is far more impactful and far more interesting and far much more of a climax in this film than the actual climax was. The time spent in the rest of the movie was revealing to the other characters what the audience already knew, that these things were happening, while laying on moral lessons espoused by the titular character. Not taking the time to build characters or scenes or showing the audience relationships that would cause them to care about or for the characters that were experiencing such hard times. It's as if they took the third act of a much larger, much better film and made only one part of it while dropping nuggets of exposition through dialogue to the tune of, "Remember when this happened?" I mean, how good would it have been to have known the relationships between the two brothers? How good would it have been to understand when the main characters started cheating on their significant others? How good would it have been to see the dissolution of the patriarch's marriage? If we had this, it would have gone right in the first and second acts. The unfortunate hit that this does to character building is the fact that the character arcs are not finished, because they would have finished in the third act of the film. There are no arcs because we never saw how these characters began. Then, one scene after they reveal the big secret, Madea force feeds the main characters a moral lesson mere seconds before the credits are gearing up to crawl across the screen. So, this film is the third act of a much broader story. It is poor writing to tell a story this way. However, there is a cultural context that I did pick up while viewing this movie. In the Afro-American tradition, family gatherings are a time and a place to get things out in the open, to heal, to vent, to cry, to catch up. There is an experience in that tradition of coming together as a family to learn and grow and to hear the conclusion of a much broader, much juicier, much better story that was resolved at the 12th hour over a barbecue or a plate of greens and cornbread. You will hear gossip about the cousin who's finally back with her baby's father, or the aunt who's finally talking to the family again, or the uncle who stopped drinking. You will hear about the good news it is to be back together again, and why we must stay together as a family. It is this aspect of these films that holds cultural relevance to the Black community. So I can't be that critical of this type of structure from that perspective. This isn't necessarily black storytelling, nor is it necessarily good storytelling, but Madea's third act film does hold cultural significance that may be appreciated on certain levels only by the black community. So, there is a certain type of ambivalence that I have with this film. Luckily, there is a saying that I say when I'm faced with this type of duality when judging my experience of a script or a film like this. I didn't like it, but I get it.